It's 1776, and George and his boys are about to cross the Delaware on Christmas Day. But did you know that there were 3 crossings that day? And one of our founding fathers almost died in the battle? And then the British basically abandoned the Hessians to fight us? But real quick, before we see what George and his boys do next, if you guys could like and subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Also comment which founding father you think almost died in the Battle of Trenton. All right, let's get to it. We'll start with the 3 crossings that were supposed to happen. George Washington's, of course, we know about. He made it across with 2,400 men, cannons, and horses, and ended up marching towards Trenton. But the other 2 groups weren't able to cross the river because of the packed ice, blizzard, and freezing temperatures. And that's Colonel Cadwalader and General James Ewing. Both were unable to cross the river, leaving George all alone and headed for Trenton. But to be fair, this is a monumental task. To cross 3 football fields of solid ice across a river during a blizzard while it is freezing temperatures, and don't forget it is Christmas Day. So what a wonderful day to celebrate. So really, is it surprising they couldn't get across the river? Not really. It was kind of a terrible day, and George sent it anyways. Now George was getting ready for the battle and the crossing, and he was taking some notes, preparing. And one of the things he wrote down was the password for the battle, and that was victory or death. One of the most powerful phrases to ever come out of the Revolution, and a phrase that will be echoed forever. Now George and his boys will make it across the river, no problem. Through all the ice, they maneuver through it using their ferry boats and Durham boats, and make it to the other side. And like I said, carrying cannons and horses. Now, the next monumental task is marching to Trenton in a blizzard, freezing rain, freezing temperatures. Let's go. Only 9 miles. But by the time they get to the side, it is the next day, about 3 or 4 in the morning, and they will be continuing their march through the night and towards Trenton. Now, 2 gentlemen would die from exposure on the march to Trenton and the terrible weather and conditions they had to deal with. But they would be the only 2 casualties on the American side for both days: the fight, the crossing, everything. Now, George and his boys have made this insane march crossing and have almost made it all the way to Trenton, all in a blizzard, freezing temperatures, only to find out that their surprise attack may have been completely ruined. A small militia led by Adam Stevens did some skirmishes with an outpost with the Hessians and may have completely ruined the surprise attack. Finding out about this, George is pissed. He is not happy. He lets Adam Stevens have it. He yells at him and tells him that he's ruined the surprise attack, and he may have completely ruined everything. Now, unbeknownst to George, Adam Stevens may have done him a huge favor by attacking that outpost. Earlier on, the Hessians got some intel that there was supposed to be an attack that day, and they were preparing for it. But after the attack of the outpost, they let their guards down and thought that that was all the action they would see for that day, because the weather was terrible and they didn't think anybody else would attack. So the thing that George thought may have ruined the entire thing may have actually saved him in the end. Now our boy George has hit several lucky breaks at this point. After crossing the Delaware full of ice, marching at 9 miles in the freezing cold, having a secondary militia attack the outpost, possibly giving away their entire attack. All of this, by the way, in a blizzard. It's still coming down. Nobody can see them approaching the city, and that might be the luckiest break yet. No one has seen them coming, and the Hessians have no idea that they're there. We are now in the town of Trenton. We have some wet powder, some cannons, and all the men are trying to get organized to start this fight. Now the Hessians are trying to throw something together the best they can to defend the city, but there are no walls, there's nothing here defensible, and the Americans are already here. Now I've mentioned a lot about Hessian troops, but not much about British troops, because there really weren't that many there. There were a few, but the British and Hessian troops really didn't get along very well. Now that could be because of difference of cultures or differences for reasons for fighting. But they did not get along, they were fighting, and they needed to be separated. So the Hessians were sent to Trenton, and that would be their outpost, while the British would set up elsewhere and hunker down for the winter. Now, in a last-ditch effort, their commander tries to get them in order and orders the artillery to fire upon the Americans, and they do get off a few rounds. Now, I mentioned a founding father earlier, and that he almost died here. Well, that founding father would be James Monroe. He would rush the artillery with a few other gentlemen And they would take the artillery from the Hessians and then turn it on the Hessians. It's pretty brutal, but they would take it from them, but not before James Monroe would take a bullet to the shoulder and rip an artery, almost killing him. A doctor was there and luckily saved his life. And then he would later become the 5th president of the United States. Now the Americans would kill quite a few officers on the Hessian side, including their commanding officer. After that, they would capture 900 Hessian troops, and the battle would be won. Now this wasn't a huge battle, there wasn't a ton of casualties, but it was a super important battle for the Revolution and keeping America in the fight. This was able to prove that the Continental Army was able to win battles. They could defeat the British, Hessians, but they could defeat the British, and they could actually win battles. This would help get people to re-enlist, to sign up for the war, and to continue fighting. This would prove to the colonies that it is worth fighting and that they can win this fight. All because of the crazy frozen commander, George Washington. Now this has been a short story on experimental history. If you could like, subscribe, comment, all those wonderful things, I would truly appreciate it. But I also hope you join me next time when I have another story to tell.